So hello and welcome to our YouTube channel. This is us entering Enoch Stomp, and their vines are covered because it's close to harvest. And if they don't cover them with netting, the animals will get to them before they have a chance to harvest them. Soon you'll just see them, ones that are more kind of the token vineyard, just for you to take pretty pictures of. See how nice and pretty they are. I'm 99% sure that these are Vinoise. And locally, we call those black Spanish grapes. So this is how the process works. It starts with us getting grapes in totes. Now, the reason we didn't have them from this vineyard is because they had some crop issues this year from the freeze. So we actually got these from Canton. And I think Altus, who is the vineyard manager and part owner of Enoch, 6.5 totes, 7.5 totes. So basically, you see manual labor. There we are pushing them inside so that we can do the crush. So this is the totes and how full they are. So you can see lots of stems, lots of grapes, lots of work, but it was fun. So before any of this can happen, every single piece of machinery you see in here, whether it be our hands, the buckets, the crusher, the stemmer, the hoses, everything has to be washed. And it's washed with the first step, is what it's called, it's a chemical. And then they use Meta. Basically, it kills all the bacteria. And then it's hosed down with very hot power washer. And this is just a video from the tote into the stemmer crusher. And it comes out down here is just juice. And from the juice, it goes all through the pump, and the pump puts it in a tote. And I'll be able to see a little sneak peek of what's inside the tote. We keep it covered. We don't want bacteria or bad stuff in there. So this is the beginning of the real process. So I had to ask a lot of questions and take a lot of notes. So at this point, Colin, the winemaker, has already taken some tests. And what he did was he was testing for sugar, pH, and then what he does is he adjusts his juice accordingly. So this juice is going to be made into wine as well as a brandy for port. So it's going to be in a process for a while. So he's mixing everything in. What he's mixing in now is when he tested, his pH was at 3.62, and he wants it at 3.5. So you'll see Kara adding some acid in there. I think it's tartaric acid, if I'm not mistaken. But previous to this, let me back up a little bit. Sorry. He added Meta, and basically that kills everything, so you can have a very fresh start, because these are coming from outside, and you don't want any kind of bacteria in your wine, because it'll just mess up everything. It'll ruin your wine. And after she put Meta in, Ernest added an enzyme what it'll do is it'll pull some of that color. Because if you see in this particular bins, there's a lot of skins and stem cell in there, and he's doing that so he can get the color out of it. So the enzyme Ernest added will actually help add to the color. And he's mixing it all in. He also, like I said, you saw her adding the acid in to adjust the pH balance. So he also said the sugar was at 21. Now I don't remember what he said he wanted it at, but the more sugar, the more alcohol you're going to get through it. So while he is stirring and mixing all this in the other room, he actually has a pan or pot of water and nutrients on to boil. And it needs to come up to 106 degrees, because once it's at 106, that's the ideal place to add the yeast. And the reason is you just have to have it's like a chemical balancing act. See, there he is. He's adding the yeast. Now we're having a pretty good conversation here, because everything is very science, very chemical balance in wine. So he knows exactly how much he needs to put in there. He knows exactly how he needs to mix it. He knows when he's done, it has to cool down to a certain temperature before he can put it into his juice. And they also told me that what's going to happen while it's fermenting is the CO2 gas will push the the grape seeds and the stems to the top. So he has to go in twice a day, and he calls it punching it down. He has to punch down the kind of formation on the top so that they can get more color to release the gas from the fermenting process and get more color in that juice. He just wants a really nice, pretty wine. He makes great wine, so I see why he does it. So he also told me that he uses these micro bins that you see, or that you saw earlier, because they're just easier to use when you have to do this punching down process, which not all wine needs it, because not all wine, you don't leave the skins and the stems in there. You know, that's for a very specific reason, color and tannin. So he uses the bins because it's just easier to work with. You have to try standing on a ladder on top of a 6 or 7 foot steel container that you're punching down with that same tool you saw him mixing with. He says just a lot of labor. And he also told me, I said, well, ask him, is this something that you do that's kind of everything is the same way every time? And he said, no, not even a little bit. He said, the chemicals are, it's a science, so it has to be done correctly. He said, more importantly, he says, we want nothing in this winery set in stone. And the reason we say that is because we always want to improve our wine. And I tend to agree. This winery's been there for 15 years, and he's been doing this, I think he said, since maybe 5 or 10 of those years, maybe 7 to 10 of those years. And I love their wine. I haven't had one that I was like, oh, I wouldn't really enjoy drinking that. So yeah, just as he's mixing this, before he's all done, the next thing he'll do is he calls it throwing the yeast. And once he throws the yeast, he just leaves it alone, except punching it twice a day. And eventually you'll get to be able to see. Now, I took some video of a different wine fermenting, because I just want you to see that bubbly goodness. And it just smells nice. Tastes different. A lot of times it's a little sweet when you taste in the middle, but it's so good. So thanks for watching our video, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.